Hi there and welcome along to another episode of Form Check Friday, where I take a look at videos that people send me of them rowing and I give my opinion on what I think works and what could do with a little bit of work as far as the rowing technique is concerned. Now, if you want to send me a video of you rowing, then please send it to info@rowalong.com. You can either upload it to YouTube or you can send it directly using wetransfer.com. You can send a video up to 2 gigabytes that way, okay? And I'll take a look and I can include you in Form Check Fridays. And please leave a comment to this video and let me know if you agree with what I'm saying about the 2 videos that are about to be reviewed, or if you'd like me to cover some other aspect of technique that doesn't actually involve your own rowing, if you get what I mean. So today we're going to be looking at Mitch and at Matt, and let's start off with Matt. Okay then, so Matt is a slightly different person to look at because he's not using what I'd say were the more typical rowing machines like a Concept 2 or a water rower or even something like an RP3. And this does bring up its own challenges, okay? I'll say now that a lot of what I'm about to say is based on the fact that this machine doesn't quite allow him to get into the positions that I'd kind of hope to get someone in when they're rowing. So let's hit play and see what goes on. Now, there's 2 main things about the design of this machine that I feel is really holding Matt back in terms of being able to put in a good amount of power and to get his body into the right kind of places to get that workout the way he wants it to be. And I'll stop there and I'll show you exactly what they are. The first is if you look at his hands, okay? His hands are right up at the handle return. His hands cannot go any further, all right? And his arms are nice and straight, okay? So it's not like he's got bent elbows or anything that are kind of holding back how far forward he is, right? So with those 2 things in mind, now let's take a look at how his shins are, like how far forwards he's able to slide in order to get to the front of the machine with straight arms. And to be honest, he's not able to get far enough. Basically, he's under compressing because the design of the machine means that he can't get any further forwards, okay? So when you look at the distance between his feet and the seat, there's loads more compression he could get in there. And in fact, if I go for my little angle tool, for the angle of his shins and vertical, he's a good 16 degrees off. So that's potential power, like compression power, that he is missing from every stroke. Now, that's going to have implications in terms of obviously the amount of power he can put in terms of what speed that he sees on his monitor, but also it's going to affect his body position for when he drives, how that force is going to come through his body. And that has there's 2 sides of this balance here. One is that he's not going to get the workout that he's expecting from rowing because he's not able to get that full compression, okay? When you read something that says rowing is a full body workout, then it's kind of based around various things happening. And what that is that you're able to push with your legs, you load the power through your back, it comes through your arms, and then you finish with your pull at the back of the stroke. And that then lets your legs get in there, lets your back and your trunk get in there, and then your arms and shoulders get in there. But because he doesn't get that full compression, he's not able to get that kind of the full flood of the force through his trunk to get into the machine. So he's missing out on a real kind of common part of this all over body workout. But at the same time, what's happening from this is that he's more likely to get some kind of back injury because he's not able to take the force that he's putting into the machine through his back. So, or flowing through his back, it's going to be going like directly into his back. So there's the subtle difference here between putting in force and it kind of like flowing beautifully through. Oh, it's not touched any part of me, and then it all kind of like going oh, and then really tightening up your back. So that's the first issue with this machine, is that he can't slide far enough forwards. In fact, I'll quickly just demonstrate, just so you can see on here, just because it's just been me waffling for a couple of minutes. So I would expect on a stroke to be able to come forwards so that my shins are in a nice vertical position so I can drive out, okay? And that's because I've got so much room at the front of the machine for my arms to go straight. In fact, I can overcompress if I wish. I can go right past vertical because I have so much room to get that handle into the front of the machine. Whereas poor Matt can only get to here, and so therefore it's like he's always leaning backwards. He doesn't really get that. He's kind of under compressing with his legs, but he also has this kind of, he has to be almost leaning backwards because any more of a forward lean and his handle is going to whack off the front of the machine. So that's kind of an issue with this. The second big problem that I have with this machine and we've already emailed about this, like Matt and I together, so this isn't like news to him, is if you look at the foot plates, they pivot. So as he comes forwards, they're on just a pivot point, and then his feet they go into like more of a horizontal position, which is totally not what you want. When you're rowing, you want your feet to be at that like a 45-degree angle, so you can really just plant your feet into it as though doing a deadlift or a squat, and get your full foot into there and power out of it. Whereas because his feet pivot like that, he's putting more of a horizontal force across, which I can only assume is going to start really kind of aggravating that the muscle running down the front of his shin. So these are the two design elements of his machine that are going to be causing him issues. However, I'm not going to sit here and say, sir, you should really just go and buy a Concept 2 and be done with it. Go away with your next video, please. Because this is what you're rowing on. And you know what? I'd much rather to see somebody rowing on, so I'm just rewinding this to the beginning. I'd much rather see somebody rowing on a machine that isn't quite as Concept 2-ish, if that's such a word. I'd rather that than that they just sat on the couch and didn't row at all. Okay, so he's getting a workout, he's getting a little bit of rowing in, and hopefully it means that if he does go to a gym or something and there is a Concept 2 there, then he's already got some kind of a base to be able to use that. And like I say, this is much better than just sitting on the couch. So let's look at his actual technique then, what's going on. So like I say, when he comes forwards, arms are nice and straight, his shoulders are nice and down, and like they're not up around his ears. Yes, he can't compress into full to his shins vertical, but hey, that's just me talking about the machine. Now, one thing to look at here is posture. Again, we've got the whole black shorts issue, but if I just kind of draw around, it's like he's doing that kind of hips are pointed backwards even when he comes into the front of the machine. So his tailbone is going to be tucked underneath him. And from a posture point of view, that isn't ideal. Now, again, it might be this part of him trying to hold himself back from over-leaning forwards. And so it's a habit he's got into. But much rather, when it comes to coming to the front of the machine, that you're up on your sit bones and kind of primed, powerful, and ready to take the stroke, than slumped with the hips rolled back. Even if you're leaning in with your back, you can still have slumped hips with they're rolled backwards and my tailbone's underneath me. So you're going to come forward, you think you're doing okay because you're leaning forwards, but actually the difference between powerful and sitting back, it's not much, but then I'm rolled backwards here, I'm nice and powerful, up on my sit bones, not on my sit bones, up on my sit bones, not on my sit bones. And there's various, so when you're not on your sit bones and you put in the power, what happens is that the power goes right into your kind of psoas muscle and into your kind of L2 lumbar region, rather than being that if you're up on your sit bones, as you push, it goes through your posterior chain, up through your body, through your arms and into the handle, and pretty much doesn't touch the sides. It just kind of goes up. So there's that side of it, but there's also, if you're kind of tucked back, as you come to the back of the machine and come forwards, and then you're tucked with your hips rolled back, even demonstrating there, I can feel my sit bones as I'm kind of going backwards and forwards, are just grinding over my glutes. And that's going to be such a cause of butt pain at one point if you're kind of constantly kind of tucked down and sitting down. So regardless of what you're on, really do think about being up and primed. Now I've got a rather disgusting way to think about this, okay? So bear with me on this one. But basically, imagine you're sitting on a carrot. And when I say sitting on a carrot, I mean it's sticking up your backside, okay? So you come to the front of the machine and you're on that carrot, so you're powerful because you don't want to snap the carrot, okay? And then you row and you make sure your sit bones are still connected to the seat because you don't want to snap that carrot. And then you pivot over your hips, still keeping that carrot right, come to the front again. But and then this is what's going on to keep you in a nice, powerful position. The moment you slump and you roll those hips back, what's up, Doc? The carrot snaps, okay? Like I say, it's a rather childish, disgusting way to think about it, but it's also a very vivid image. So now, I will caveat this now and say, do not sit on a carrot. If I get any emails or whatever, so someone saying, I tried sticking a carrot up my backside and it really didn't help my rowing, then yeah, what's the world coming to, when you have to make that kind of a caveat to something like that? Anyway, right, so posture-wise, he's slightly rolled back. You can see just from the rounding of the back. Arms are nice and straight. Shins can't quite hit vertical, and who knows what's going on with the feet height because of that kind of forward lean. Now, when he comes to the back, let's quickly go whoosh. I'll get to the actual finish. To be honest, the layback doesn't seem too deep. He's finishing with the handle at sternum height. The elbows look as though they come through the sides. His wrists are flat. Actually, I think that's a lovely finish. I think he's got that down, and it looks as though he pulls around nicely. Now, the last thing I'm going to say about Matt's technique comes to ratio, okay? I'm a big believer anyway, that for the rates between 20 and maybe like 26, 28 strokes a minute, to have a 2-to-1 ratio where your drive speed is twice as fast as your recovery. So that means that you explode out at the front and then you take twice as long as that to recover to the front. Because obviously you want to take longer to recover, get a chance to literally recover from your stroke, and then you go out to the front and then you recover, and then you go out to the back and then you recover, and then go out to the back and then you recover, okay? When we watch Matt, it's like a pendulum, okay? So he's just going drive, return. Drive, return, drive, return. It's like a pendulum. He's just swinging, swinging. There's a little pause at the front that kind of messes up. And it's like, because of that power thing, you can see, because of the foot stretcher issue and not able to get the power in right, you can see there's like a hiccup where he comes forwards and then he comes in, and you can just see the hands go down, and he jolts at the point when his foot rotates into the proper kind of position. There's like a snap of his arms. I'll hit play normally and you'll see it as he connects with the machine. But anyway, that's by the by. The whole point is the ratio here is that he goes back and forwards, back and forwards. You could fall asleep to the nice kind of pendulum rhythm of his stroke here. Whereas, like I say, I'd much prefer to see an explode out. You put in all the power and then you recover. Then you explode out and put in the power. But there's a chance that his machine just doesn't let him explode out. I don't know what this machine is. Maybe it has quite a reduced resistance so that he can't. Because remember, when I talk about the drive phase of the stroke, it's about loading up the back. So you push with the legs into the back and then you swing over. So you really power. You're pushing the machine away from you. Power, and then you finish. Power, finish. Okay? If he doesn't have the resistance that he's able to hang off the handle at that for that power from the front, then that could well be why he's just in this kind of back and forwards and back and forwards and back with no real kind of ratio of the 2-to-1 thing that I'm on about. I mean, his hands at the back, they come away okay. His hands are pretty much over his knees before they bend. His hips could be tilted a little bit further forwards over his knees by the time he goes into that recovery. But again, this could be a product of the fact that because he can't recover fully to the front compression-wise, that it's just slightly all over the place. But actually, what I'd say is that he does have a nice technique. If you just work on that ratio, of being able to like explode out the front and then recover slower than that, then actually, I mean, you're getting a good workout in your machine, I hope. You do have kind of an okay stroke that, like I say, by the time, if you are able to go to the gym and jump onto Concept 2, and then you can think about that, getting forward to your shins, getting into that vertical position before driving off again, then I'm pretty sure you'll be doing quite well on the Concept 2. So the last thing to say, as much as I'm saying that this isn't the best of machines by looking at all these kind of oddness things that it does have a water bottle holder. I don't have a water bottle holder. So anyway, there we go. So that's what we are from Matt. I think good stroke, but your machine's probably holding you back is basically my summary. Okay then, so now we get to Mitch, who actually when he got in touch with me, he said, you're going to see that there's some flexibility issues here. He has back problems, so he's not quite able to get into certain positions that I would normally say, I would really rather you had shins in a vertical position and a powerful back and things. Mitch basically has issues that he just can't do that from a flexibility, and that's fine. I'm still going to talk about them, but I'm not going to say, so I really want you to straighten up, because if you can't, you can't, okay? And I mean, even on this freeze frame, you can see what the potential issues are going to be. I mean, already his shins aren't at vertical, but again, it's a flexibility thing. So therefore, there's quite a lot of distance between his feet and the seat. I'm not saying, by the way, that I want the seat to be whacking off your ankles, but there's definitely more room for his legs could compress if he had the flexibility to be able to do it. But he doesn't. There is, I mean, if you look at his neck, there's definitely, his head's kind of like forwards, which isn't really going to be helping his posture and things, but again, that could be a flexibility thing. And his shoulders are kind of up with it, so that's not really going to help much. However, when I hit play, if I'll make this slightly smaller so you can see you can see that he is putting in a good amount of power. It will stop it right at the back. In fact, are we all the way at the back? Yep, his legs are nice and straight. He's got the full leg extension in there. You can see, his muscles are rippling, so he's put in the power here. So he's definitely putting in the effort that you need to, even though his flexibility might be holding him back slightly. So, but then onto the things that I'd kind of say, right, here's the things you can change if you have the desire, basically. And we'll look at both ends of it. So the first thing is to look at as he comes forward. You'll see that he comes in, and then there's a final kind of what I tend to call a dump into the front. So he's recovering, and then he gets in, and then there's like an extra lean that happens, and his head goes down. And what I'd kind of guess at this is that because he knows he's not able to get shins into vertical and he's losing compression, what's happening with Mitch is that he's having a little extra lean at the front to try and get more chain length. Basically thinking that's how he can make up for the power that he's missing. And actually, that dump at the front to get more length, you lose so much strength through your posture that you actually lose, or at least certainly in my case, because this is my big problem, is I lose power by having that extra lean into the front rather than just staying in my natural kind of 1 o'clock forward lean. I know you're not leaning into 1 o'clock, but what I'd say is that extra lean is probably robbing you of power, especially because everything seems to just kind of come down to the front. It's like you come in and then everything sits in. If you see, you are kind of tucked up into like a little ball at the front. So ideally, obviously flexibility you can't, but ideally you want to be coming into the front with a nice powerful back, ready to drive out from the front. Now what my issue is that I come to the front, then I come in and then I dip at the front. I'm thinking I'm getting a little bit extra chain length by having a dip, and I can feel this hyperextension through my lower back when I do this dip to the front. And this is essentially what's happening with you, is that dip. Just because you're already starting off relatively rounded, you're even more rounded at the front. So down like that. So even though you can't do much about the flexibility, so you are coming in slightly curled, I try and not do that kind of fall in at the front, and then just let that power come from your legs. You're not going to get that much more from like an inch extra chain length, and you're going to probably lose that force from your legs up into the chain is going to go because of that extra lean forwards. Okay, so then if we go to the back of the stroke, hang on, let's pause it on this one. You can see that Mitch has a very high finish and also quite a deep layback. Now what that says to me is that actually you've got quite good core strength to be able to get into that layback and then kind of come back forwards again. But you don't need to be using that, okay? So again, I think this is probably a result of you're trying to make up for the fact you can't get the compression at the front, so you're trying to get more chain length by having that deeper layback and the high finish. Technically, I mean, if you look at some of the guys that row the World Championships, you can see that they go very fast and whatever with a high finish and a deep layback. But I think in your case, you're overcompensating for the other end. And if you just went to a standard 11 o'clock finish, it's going to help you for that return, so you're not going to have that dump at the front. So I think if you didn't do that layback, if you just stopped a little bit shorter, you're not going to be putting the stress through your back. You're not going to be putting the stress through your core, like your stomach muscles either. And you're going to be able to get your hips into that forward lean better for the recovery, so you don't do that dump at the front. And then the other thing is that high finish with the handle it's going to be robbing you of power. I'm a great believer that to finish with the handle lower at sternum height, you use your lats, more muscles in your back, rather than when you finish high and that kind of flick in with the handle, which you can see, if I do that, you can see it's that kind of high finish. You're using your biceps, which is fine if you want big gym muscles. You're using your forearms and you're using your delts. And all three of which aren't particularly geared for, say, like even like a 2K is like 200 strokes, 220 strokes or something like that. And if you're trying to do it at full force, they're not really geared for that. Your back is. So the chances of injury and early fatigue kind of get higher and higher as your handle gets higher and higher. Whereas if you finish slightly lower, then you can get that power through, and that's also then going to help. You're not going to have that, because obviously finishing high, almost, it's like the deep layback promotes a high finish, and a high finish promotes a deep layback. So if you try and think about finishing at sternum height, then you're likely to get more power out, and you're likely to also help yourself with this deep layback that's happening at the back of the stroke. Especially because your elbows are down as well. So my big thing about this is injury. I've seen so many people get injured, like golfer's elbow and things from that high finish, and it doesn't really result in going that much faster. Now, the next thing to say is the handle over your knees. It's definitely an odd kind of bump that happens, and I think this again is a result of that layback that you've got. So your handle comes down, and you can see your knees have already bent before your hands have passed your knees, and you're still in a bit of a backwards lean. So again, I'll try and emulate what you're doing. So you're coming in to a high finish, and then the knees come up. So high finish, knees come up. That was a bit too soon, but what's happening is, because you are still tilting over your back as you start sliding, that's another issue that's promoting this forward dump at the front. Ideally, what you want to do is get the handle away and then tilt over your hips. And then once you're in that position, you do nothing more to that tilt on your back. It's almost like you get to here and you lock it in place. Nothing more. Lock it. And that's the point of getting the handle away in the hip rock before bending your knees, is to lock in place that hip angle so that you're nice and powerful when it comes to the drive. Whereas if you bend too soon, you're having to launch yourself, and literally because of that flying motion into the front, it can create that forward lean into the front. So I'd suggest, in that sense, is just trying to not have as deep a layback. So just have a nice 11 o'clock and then get the hands away, tilt as much as you can over your hips with whatever posture you can manage, and then bend your knees, holding whatever resulting angle you're over your hips in that. Even if you are in that kind of rounded motion, if you come forwards and you're rounded, just don't round anymore. If that's all you can manage in terms of your flexibility, that's all you can manage. Again, like the machine with Matt, no one's going to turn around and say, excuse me, but I think you'll find that because you can't get your shins to vertical and you're not unable to have the flexibility of a rower, we're going to take away all abilities for you to be able to row ever again. Goodbye. No one's going to say that. And to be honest, I'll hit play here just so we can revel in exactly what you're like as a rower, because you do look, I mean, I don't want to be ageist here, but you do look slightly older on the older end of the spectrum. God, I'm tiptoeing around things today, aren't I? But you look fit and you look powerful. And to be honest, by the time I'm your age, if I can look fit and powerful, I'm going to be happy. So the fact that you're doing all this, and it's not like you're just tickling the machine, you're putting in a good whack of effort. If you're able to row comfortably without injury in this way, then to be honest, take what I'm saying with a pinch of salt. I do worry about that high finish, about potential injuries to your arms and maybe your lower back from taking the force. But what I wouldn't want to happen is that you take my advice about changing things and then suddenly you do injure yourself and you can't row anymore. So really, I'm looking at your technique as in an ideal world, you'd obviously have more compression at the front, you'd obviously have a more powerful upright posture, you'd obviously have a shallower layback and a lower finish. But because of the flexibility issues and things that you have, then you need to kind of weigh up that you are, if you are comfortable rowing the way you are right now, then do you change anything? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, really is what it comes down to. So there we go. That's me breezed through Mitch and gone through Matt as well. Hopefully it made sense. Hopefully I wasn't rambling on. Both of them were slightly different situations because it wasn't just like someone sitting on a Concept 2 that the world was their oyster. You had Matt with a machine that's kind of holding him back a little bit, and then you had Mitch, whose flexibility, which kind of held him back a bit. So two different cases to normal. So hopefully I've kind of tiptoed my way around this one well enough. Anyway, so there we go. That was today's or this week's Form Check Friday. I do hope you enjoyed it. Please make sure and leave some kind of comment in this video to let me know what you thought of it. Was I on point with what I was saying? Did I miss anything out? Is there anything else you'd like me to talk about? And of course, if you want to send me a video of you rowing for me to talk about, then please send either a YouTube link to info@RowAlong.com, or if you want to use the WeTransfer.com service, then you can send the video itself, anything up to 2 gigabytes videos, and you can send that for free. Okay, and also please make sure and have a sniff around the rest of this channel. This channel's more about the free RowAlong workouts that I do. I've got hundreds of them up here, like literally hundreds, that all work as standalone workouts. You can just go, I want to do this today, or they're grouped together as like some of them are a 10K plan or a 5K plan or a 2K or 30 days of 30-minute workouts. But you can just look around and just say, oh, that 10K plan has a 5 times 6 minutes with 2 minutes rest. I want to do that today. You don't have to then do the rest of the plan. No one's going to say, ah, ha, ha, you are now part of the RowAlong thing. Just do that one workout and then let me know how you got on with it, okay? Because I'm just here to entertain and distract and talk while rowing, because that helps my cardio, so why not? Yeah, so do have a look at some of the RowAlong workouts. Look at some of the other Form Check Fridays. Look at some of the little standalone videos I've got, like things like how to row faster by hanging off the handle, all that stuff. I've got hundreds of videos up here. Yeah, okay, I think I've sold myself properly now. Yeah, thank you so much for watching this one. Please do make sure and get in touch and say hello and all that kind of stuff. Please look after yourselves, stay safe, be well, and bye-bye.